Commissioner, you called, we came. Wonderful, wonderful, yeah, wonderful.
Warmly to this very important event. First, it has stakeholders from across our continent, particularly the media, who may have this opportunity to know more about how we build peace, how we advance peace, and how we sustain peace. It's a full-time job to try and consolidate peace and democracy on our continent. We have been going through a lot, given the geopolitical considerations and context globally. But at the same time, we are determined, as the African Union Commission, working under the leadership of His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, our chair, to do more and use this opportunity to have you as our stakeholders. Let me particularly welcome the chair of the UN Peacebuilding Commission, the Ambassador of Germany to the United Nations, as well as all those who have joined us this afternoon. It's going to be very brief. What we want to do is to, first of all, do what is expected of us from our mandate when it comes to peace building. And 4 years in a row, this is the 5th edition, we have established what we call the Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Awareness Week. We want to see all stakeholders, the media, the academia, working with us, the ambassadors, working with us to consolidate peace. At the same time, we want you to see what we do in our African Union Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Center. So peace building is in our DNA, but how do we really grow with it? How do we mobilize all the actors to empower the youth, to also bring the civil society and all actors together? We cannot do this alone. Peace building is everyone's business. Every segment of the African society, every global player. And we thank our partners for also supporting us in this journey. But moving ahead, how do we ensure that transitional justice contributes to social cohesion? How do we ensure that DDR, SSR, part of our game to silence the guns permanently? So we are committed, we are ready to take you to the next level. But this particular session today is about knowledge sharing, knowledge that has been generated, and knowledge that is going to be managed better. So today, we are launching the 2nd edition of the Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Journal. That journal is all about peace building in practice, and particularly focusing on one right that we must not forget: the right to development imperative. This right is recognized by the United Nations, is embedded in the AU Charter on Human and People's Rights, but it's hardly spoken about. We call on our media to see that political and civil rights are very important, but the economic, social, and cultural rights are equally important. They are interdependent, and they are very, very well integrated. So we want to use this opportunity to acknowledge the editorial board, the contributors to this 2nd journal. I hope they can all stand up. Dr. Damawit and his team, if they are here, please stand up to be recognized. The contributors to please give them a round of applause. These are ladies and gentlemen that have contributed to the 2nd edition of our journal. We want to make this journal, please sit down. We want to make this journal very, very well articulated and, of course, publicized across our continent in our universities, so we can bridge the gap between theory and practice. Most importantly, we are making efforts at quick impact projects on our continent. The little we have in the AU Commission with our partners, we are moving ahead to rebuild communities, to rebuild lives, to rebuild livelihoods, to also contribute to their well-being. We'll be launching in 2026 a new policy on mental health and psychosocial support. These are facts that we can really present to you. But most importantly, I want to assure you that we are working very well with a global player called the United Nations Peace Building Commission. Yesterday, with our African Union Peace and Security Council, we had the 8th session of our joint annual consultations. We discussed specific countries and regions in South Sudan, Lake Chad Basin, and the Great Lakes region. We need to see that we are moving ahead to make a change. Peace building is all about peace dividends. If we do not change the lives of those who have been traumatized by war in Sudan, by war in Libya, by the conflict in the Lake Chad Basin or the Sahel, or Mozambique, or Eastern DRC, we will not be worth building the peace that we need. So Agenda 2063 is very clear. We are committed to making this peace work for everyone. So I really want to thank you for coming. I don't want to take you from lunch. I know our guests from New York will have to leave in about 20 minutes. So I want to appeal that instead of all the speeches we're supposed to be making, let's have a conversation. Let's have the intersection of our ideas. And of course, let's have a very great meal. I thank you so much. More attention by all African Union member states, the Peace and Security Council, and the global actors. You know that we face various threats on our continent. New, emerging, pervasive threats, ranging from geopolitical interference and competition on our continent to the impact of climate change on peace and security, including the use of new technologies that have aggravated many of the conflicts. You see drones flying across battle lines. And we also need to see that terrorism is spreading, and we see many of our countries, indeed all our regions, facing the scourge of terrorism and violent extremism. So let me start specifically to say the African Union is committed. All our organs, particularly the lead decision-making organ on peace and security, which is the African Union Peace and Security Council, is saddled with finding solutions that relate to conflict prevention, conflict management, and conflict resolution. And they remain very, very committed to pushing the agenda for a peaceful and secure Africa according to Agenda 2063. So given this background, we have the challenges we face. But the will, the political will, the solidarity remains. But we can still raise the bar higher to the level where we can all collectively find the solutions about collective security. So I will be specific to the questions, and I will please permit me to be very brief because of time. The first is that counterterrorism remains top on our agenda as the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security in the African Union Commission. Indeed, we are focusing on 5 priorities in our department. And most of them relate to what you have asked the questions for. So let me give you the background. The first is that we are investing more in conflict prevention, using mediation and early warning to impact the situation on our continent. So this strategic effort, which we can call structural conflict prevention, is our #1 priority. Number 2 is to support member states in building integrated capacities in their defense and security engagements to be able to have the strategic capabilities to defend themselves, particularly against terrorists, insurrectionists, and those who have taken arms, non-state armed actors. These priorities are very, very critical for us as we move along in the African Union. The third priority, which you also relate to, is to strengthen democracy and good governance. And you know that once you have good governance, you will improve on human security as a holistic approach to finding solutions to these very complex situations. Finally, we are trying to work on what we call smart partnerships. Partnerships that relate to promoting inclusion within our continent, within the society, within the media, civil society, youth, women groups, all working together, and our regional and economic communities also partaking in this partnership. So if we have this strong partnership for peace, all the three above priorities that I mentioned will be actualized. Now to your questions, given this context that I've provided. Terrorism remains a huge challenge, and Africa is being touted as the epicenter of global terrorism, which is not a good tag, and we want to change that. And I can assure you that with the newly established, renamed and rebranded African Union Counterterrorism Center in Algiers, we can make a difference. Our leaders met in May 2022 in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, and adopted what is called the Malabo. We want to work together to make sure that collectively we can defeat terrorism in all its forms. And we have to do that within the two approaches, the kinetic response and also the whole of society and whole of government approach. What does this mean? We have to bring in all the actors, the youth, women groups, civil society, faith-based organizations, to work and support the governments that are dealing with, that are facing terrorism, whether it's in Lake Chad Basin, in the Sahel, or in Cabo Delgado. We have also introduced a new intelligence sharing focus. We have what we call the Djibouti process as well as Nouakchott process. These processes bring together all the various intelligence outfits on our continent, because terrorism can be defeated once intelligence sharing is effective and better disseminated. So we are really looking forward to working with the Committee of Intelligence and Security Services in Africa, CISA. We're working with them. We are working with various intelligence agencies on our continent to make a difference in dealing with terrorism and violent extremism. The second point from the first question also has to do with how some of our member states are contributing to the effort to support our work in consolidating democracy. We have deployed over 10 election observation missions this year around our continent, and I can tell you for sure we are making this election observation more inclusive, fit for purpose, and most importantly, relevant to the needs and demands of our member states. So what we need to do is to uplift the level of training and capacity of our election observers. And this is why we want to thank the government of the Kingdom of Morocco that have every year in the last 4 years contributed to training election observers around our continent. The last session that was held April, May in 2025, we had over 100 election observers that were trained. And we have also introduced 2 other levels of election. We have the experts training that we do across our continent. We've held this one for this year in Algeria, and the last one was in Botswana. We bring together the best experts around the continent to fit into the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance. This is what we are committed to do, and recently we are also focusing on targeted set of observers, women and youth, who are also getting dedicated and specialized training on elections and governance on our continent. We want to continue this in 2025, 2026, and we're going to take it to the level of standardizing our principles on the African continent for all our regional economic communities and mechanisms. So for elections, I can tell you that we have the committed set of observers across our continent, and this year we have been able to observe elections in Tanzania, in Cameroon, in many parts of our continents, up to Seychelles. The good news is that we are getting better with our election observation, and we are making impact in getting to the grassroots when it comes to election observation. We are also recording our challenges, our experiences, and the solutions, and most importantly, the best practices and commendable practices we see from these elections. There were a lot of questions on Sudan, so let me first of all re-echo the Peace and Security Council that have repeatedly confirmed that the condemnation of all forms of external interference in Sudan or in any other conflict on our conflict zone on our continent, be it in Sudan or the Sahel. We, as the African Union, do not believe anyone should be interfering or fueling the crisis that is already ongoing in parts of the African continent. So we condemn unequivocally all forms of external interference in Sudan or in any parts of our continent. What is clear is that I'm not going to name and shame here any country because of evidence, but what we are assured of is that African solutions to African problems is what we live by. And if that is our essence, the question about why many of the peace agreements are being signed or being negotiated or concluded by partners. We have no objection to supporting the efforts of the African Union. But the African Union must be in the lead. The African Union must be a part of the solutions to this complex set of challenges we face on the continent. So we are working with the parties to find more space for the African Union. And we are not begging for these spaces. It's a demand that we think is a right for the African Union to be part of finding durable structural solutions, shared solutions for sustainable peace across our continent. Be it Sudan or the Sahel, we have to be part and parcel, an integral part to finding peace on our continent. Because peace is not just the agreement being signed. It is actually the focus on following up on all the agreements, whether it's Sudan in future or in South Sudan with the revitalized agreement on the conflict resolution in South Sudan. When member states of our union have differences, the African Union is always there to find solutions. So we want to assure you that all the areas that were mentioned in terms of tension amongst our member states, we are there in quiet diplomacy, in early warning, in conflict prevention model and mode to find these solutions. So we have been engaging all the parties, all the countries, both sides. We do not discriminate. We do not have any favored conflict. All conflicts must be ended on our continent. That's the mandate of the protocol establishing the Peace and Security Council. It's the mandate in our Constitutive Act, and it's also necessary for us to continue to work with member states. We do it in public diplomacy. We also do it in private, quiet diplomacy. So I will not go into details to mention specific countries, but I can tell you that we do not want to see additional conflicts breaking out anymore on our continent. So we invest in conflict prevention, like I stated, and we are doing so with all the necessary support by the Peace and Security Council, by the cabinet of the chairperson and the chairperson himself, and the entire member states. Silencing the guns remains a topmost agenda and a flagship program of Agenda 2063. Because of this, we have carried out a midterm review of the Silencing the Guns agenda. We have also engaged under the leadership of His Excellency President William Ruto of the Republic of Kenya as champion for institutional reform to find solutions by reviewing all our frameworks and looking at how best to reshape and to sharpen our tools that we have in abundance. All our frameworks have been reviewed for the first time in the history, 22 of them, from Silencing the Guns agenda to the protocol established in the Peace and Security Council. And I want to assure you that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel to revamp and re-energize our response to these enormous challenges. Basically, the situation on our continent, we just still have the hope and the light at the end of the tunnel that relates to the peace process in the Eastern DRC and Madagascar. In Madagascar, we have just carried out a dispatch of the panel of the wise with the special envoy recently appointed by the chairperson. They've been able to meet the prime minister, foreign minister, and the new military leader, the president of the interim administration in Madagascar. We are committed to work with Madagascar to return to political stability, to return, to return to democratic governance. So the Peace and Security Council have spoken. Madagascar has been regrettably now joined the League of countries that have been suspended. We now have 6. But the good news is that in 2025, Gabon was readmitted into the family of the Democratic African Union. This is good because elections were held. The AU observation team certified the elections as free, fair, transparent, and credible. We hope that other countries currently suspended will also follow suit. So we are praying and hoping that Madagascar will come up with a roadmap, credible roadmap towards genuine political transition to constitutional order. This is the minimum that we are appealing for the people of Madagascar. And we will be following up, working with SADC, working with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, working with all stakeholders in Madagascar to ensure. And for your information, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very formidable tool, which is called the African Facility to Support Inclusive Transition, AFSIT. With the UNDP, the AU and the UNDP have co-created this facility, which is modest in terms of resources mobilized to support political transition. And I believe strongly Madagascar is one of those who will be benefiting from this facility to be able to return to democratic order. It is also the same for Guinea, that will be holding elections in December. It is also the same, we hope, for Mali, for Burkina Faso, for Niger, and eventually for Sudan. Sudan is a tragedy arising from transition. But we have to work with the two parties to end this conflict that is unwarranted and unnecessary. The good people of Sudan deserve a peaceful, stable country. And there's too much war going around that we all have to work for. So we support, we welcome The Quad that has just been established, that is working, including the United States, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates, working together for peace. And we are in full consultation with the Quad and other actors to find lasting peace in Sudan. We have to work relentlessly to make peace happen in Sudan. And our goal is not just a humanitarian ceasefire, it is a comprehensive, unconditional, most all-out ceasefire that will have the opportunity for the political actors, for political dialogue between all the parties, whether it's the Sudanese Armed Forces, the RSF, and their allies. I want to assure you that we are working without fail to make sure that peace returns to Sudan. Eastern DRC, you are also aware that the African Union has been mandated to coordinate the response through the 5 facilitators that have been appointed to work on all actual areas of finding peace in Eastern DRC. We are pleased with the Washington process and the Doha process, and just 2-3 days ago, another framework agreement for cessation of peace was signed in Doha. All these agreements really mean a lot to the African Union, and the African Union has been a partaker of these processes, and we commend our partners who have been working with us to make peace happen in the DRC. Let me end by assuring you that we do not in any way, as the African Union, we will never condone any crimes against humanity, war crimes, or genocide on our continent. That is why the African Union has appointed for the first time a special envoy on the prevention of mass atrocities and genocide on our continent. It's the first time in our history. It was appointed last year, Mr. Adama, who is now working. He's been to Sudan, seen many countries, and see how we can stop the slide. You remember very well that the Constitutive Act of the African Union is the only one in the world that makes an exception to the rule of non-intervention in the internal affairs of member states. We do not condone crimes against humanity, war crimes, or genocide, or ethnic cleansing on our continent. We have the full backing in our legal norms that these crimes will not be tolerated. So we support the investigation of alleged crimes in Darfur. This investigation will have the full support of the African Union, working with the African Union Commission on Human and People's Rights that is based in Banjul. We want to dig out what has happened so that the perpetrators will be brought to book. We highlight accountability in this process, and we want to call again on the parties in conflict in Sudan to respect the rights of their people, to respect the rights of women and children, and we will do all in our power to protect women and children who are in war zones across our continent. Let me especially thank you all for coming. There was not a question on the post-conflict reconstruction awareness week, but let me say, most importantly, that this week is a week about peace building. And if peace building is one of our topmost priorities, we want to assure you that regularly across our 5 regions, across our 55 member states, we are doing our best within the existing resources available to push for peace, to build peace, to encourage the youth, and to ensure that Africa remains democratic. But when we remain democratic, we must also embrace sustainable development. And that is why one of our top approaches in what we do in the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the Commission is to promote the nexus between peace, security, governance, and sustainable development. Let me use this opportunity to thank all our partners who have supported us. A number of them were here earlier on, and I can assure you that they believe strongly in the work we are doing. We also need Africans to imbibe and accept our engagements, because we can all together build a better Africa so that we can focus on delivering on the sustainable agenda, sustainable development agenda, and most importantly, Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. I thank you so much. And if there are any comments, okay, please. I can take one more or two questions. So I will not, but first let me say that we are very pleased and proud of the Pretoria Agreement, the cessation of hostilities agreement that was signed on the 2nd of November 2022 in Pretoria, South Africa, between the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the TPLF. Why are we pleased? First and foremost, the guns have been effectively silenced in Tigray region. Of course, like in any peace process, any peace agreement implementation, you will still have challenges to bring all actors and stakeholders to the peace table. We are very proud that we can cite the Pretoria Agreement as a success. But we agree that there are challenges still to be addressed, including the return of internally displaced persons, including more progress on disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. But if you look at the numbers, over 60,000 have been placed in the DDR model. So we are monitoring and we are engaging with the government of Ethiopia to ensure, and the parties, the TPLF, to ensure that there is permanent peace in that region. As you know, commercial activities are fully resumed, and Mekelle and other cities in northern Ethiopia where the conflict had brewed in the past are beginning to face real stability and experience real stability. So this is one agreement that we're following up, and we constantly engage all the actors, including the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and the TPLF, to ensure that peace is permanently viewed in that region. I will not go into the question of assessing, as I said, our member states, but I can tell you that we work with all member states, and most of the questions you have asked, we have recently issued, as the Commission, the response of the African Union. We fully support our member states that have faced various forms of challenges. We are in African solidarity. We have engaged with all actors, and we are also engaging with partners to ensure better understanding of what the African Union member states face in terms of these security threats across our continent. We're a young continent, so we need to see the best way to address the challenges of today. But please be reassured, just let me round up. Be reassured that the African Union Commission, under the leadership of our chairperson, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and the entire member states and organs, we are committed to a conflict-free continent. It's not an easy task, I can assure you, but with the dedication of the staff in the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, represented here by the director and many of our heads of divisions, as well as the Executive Secretary of the African Union Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Center in Cairo, I want to assure you that we need your support. We need your understanding. We are also looking at many areas and new initiatives. We are working with you in our democracy, media, and socialization model. We are working with you on the nexus. We want to bring more of researchers, more of the youth, more of female to our activities. We are going to prioritize in 2026 youth inclusion across board in all what we do, from mediation to peace support operations, to election observation, of course, to youth peace and security program. We have a number of champions. We use this opportunity to particularly commend His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of the Arab Republic of Egypt for championing post-conflict reconstruction and development. We also commend His Excellency President Juan Lorenzo, who is the current chair of the African Union itself, who is our champion for peace and reconciliation. We are very pleased to be working with the President Evariste of the Republic of Burundi, who is a champion for youth peace and security. We also welcome Madam Ambassador Mulamula, who is currently the new Special Envoy for Women, Peace and Security. All our special envoys on the field and across our union are working to make peace happen. And the only way we can do so is that peace is a collective aspiration. So its delivery must also be collective. So I really want to thank the media for joining us today, and I hope this particular event will be well disseminated, and of course, there will be no twisting of the facts, because we have seen in some cases, like in Tanzania, quoting the commissioner for what was not even ever said. So I want to appeal to you that what has been stated today, what you get from our special sessions, what you get in our communiques and our press releases from the chairperson is what we stand for. The African Union stands for peace, stands for democracy, and of course, stands for security. And this must be collective. It is all of us in the business to make peace an endeavor that is achievable on our continent. So I thank you for this partnership, and I really want to thank the communications team in the PAPS department for putting this effort together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Thank you also all the